Hi, welcome to Maker's Bar. Joining us today is Marcus Whitney. He's the founding partner of Jumpstart Nova, the first healthcare venture fund in America investing exclusively in Black founded and led startups. Marcus is also the co founder and minority owner of Nashville Soccer Club. He's the author of Amazon best-selling book Create and Orchestrate and has been featured in Entrepreneur, CNBC, NPR, Fast Company, The Atlantic. He's also delivered a TEDx talk. Marcus is an Aspen Health Innovators Fellow and is also on the board of Celtic Bank. Marcus actively competes in Jiu Jitsu and is married and has two sons. Welcome, Marcus. All that you've achieved, I think it took lifetimes to achieve this.
Thank you, my friend. How are you, Achata?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
All right, so let's get started with the interview. So tell me a little bit of your early background and how you got started.
Yeah, so I started my career as a technologist, but if I go back just a little bit before then, kind of the real start was I was a college dropout and I was waiting tables. So that's kind of the beginning of my adult life was I dropped out of high school. I wanted to be a hip hop artist and a producer, so I did that for like 3, 4 years. I was in Atlanta doing that and met a girl. We started a family, and then we had one kid. Then another kid was on the way, and it was like, how are we gonna do this with no money, and also no community? And so we decided to move to Nashville, where she had grown up and had friends from high school. So we moved here, and I was waiting tables, and that's when I was like, okay, I can't do the rap thing. I need to do a real job. So I spent 8 months teaching myself how to code, and then got a junior programmer job at a company called HealthStream. And from there, my career that I have today kind of began.
Okay.
So started as a junior developer, and then moved on into CTO, and then on and on from there.
So even I started as a developer very early on in my career, which
Oh, nice.
kind of dates me. I do have like a software engineering degree. So anyway, so how did you like? So you started as a developer, and not all developers go and start a VC fund. Like, how did you go about starting like a healthcare VC fund? How do you do that? Like, how did you make that big transition?
Yeah, so I'd say the first transition was from developer slash entrepreneur into VC, and I just had really good timing. I left my last like full time only tech job in 2007, and that was the year that South by Southwest happened. Like really kind of blew up, and Twitter launched. The iPhone launched that year, but also in the VC space, VC was being disrupted pretty heavily by Y Combinator, and then probably even more importantly to me, Techstars,
Mhm.
because Y Combinator was amazing in terms of like dropping the minimum investment to $15,000, but it was still in Silicon Valley.
Mhm.
What made Techstars so important was that they were in Boulder, Colorado, so they were in Middle America, right? And I think they gave many other folks in Middle America the belief that they could, start to create their own VC with very little dollars as well. And so in Nashville, I ended up partnering with a full time VC who believed that VC was evolving, but that he needed more technology and entrepreneurship expertise at the table.
Mhm. Mhm.
Most VCs are kind of a bunch of financial engineers, MBAs. Usually not. Well, these days it's changed, but back then in 2007, there were not a lot of coders that were becoming VCs, but he had a lot of vision around that, and so we started the first Techstars style accelerator in the Southeast United States, and so that was how I got into it, was through that angle. And then if you want to know healthcare, over 5 years of running the accelerator, we did all sorts of companies. But when we looked back after 5 years, the companies that clearly were the most successful were the healthcare companies. And that's because Nashville is a really strong healthcare town. So,
Mhm.
it's not a big tech town. It's getting better, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. But we have 50 years of healthcare legacy in this town, and have multiple, publicly traded companies, just so many billionaires and millionaires in this town have been made through healthcare. And so
Uh-huh.
we realized that if we wanted to be competitive with the best funds in the country, we needed to completely focus on the strength of our city. And so that's why we became healthcare only.
That's awesome. But like, so you basically seek for a partner who had the
Yeah,
capital, and then you basically started the accelerator, and that was your first step in. And
that was
then
the beginning.
That was the beginning. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And then how did you go about raising capital for your fund, right? I mean, raising capital is like extremely hard, and especially for a fund. I mean, obviously you had some track record and all of that, but how did you go about doing it? Because if you look at it, like just saying that exclusively investing in a particular set of founders might work against you, right? So how
Sure.
did you go about doing that?
So again, we started Jumpstart Foundry as a tech accelerator in 2010.
Okay.
I didn't start raising my fund, Jumpstart Nova, until 2020. So it
Okay.
was 10 years of building accelerator and pre-seed track record. So that's
Mhm.
one.
Uh-huh.
Two, a lot of those 10 years, I was largely an apprentice, not raising money, but more doing the technology and operating aspects of the fund.
Yeah.
So, much more of an operating partner and a president than like an actual
Mhm.
GP, and learning about how to do that underneath my partner,
Yeah.
Vic, who was a career venture capitalist. So
Mhm.
I think, there were a lot of new GPs who came on the scene 2020, 2021. And I think one of the things that just differentiated me was when I was out raising, I had this 10-year track record,
Yeah. Yeah.
of being an apprentice, earning my position as a partner, having exits. So that year in 2020, we had 4 exits. And you spoke about the exclusive focus of Jumpstart Nova investing only in Black founded and led healthcare companies. In
Mhm.
2020, of our 4 exits that we had, 2 of the 4 exits were founded by Black people. So we even had track record for my specific focus, which proved that I could not only find Black founded and led healthcare companies, but find ones that would be viable for exit. So we just had a lot of things that worked out in our favor. But it was a 10-year overnight success to be able to be viable to raise a fund.
Yeah. So did in those 10 years, did you have like a little frustration? Because it's a long time. And Marcus, like I have to say, like you were at it for like 10 years, right? And a lot of people, if they were in your shoes, they would probably lose their focus and they lose something else. And it has happened to me as well, right? So how did you like, like a woodpecker, like kept chopping at it, How can you do that?
Well, so I guess the thing I would just say is that back when I first got in, it was
Yeah.
just amazing that I was even in the VC business, and I don't think there were any expectations that like I should even be there, much
Yeah.
less like that I should be able to raise my own fund. Things have
Yeah.
changed dramatically. I would say in a good way in terms of the expectations that the market be more diverse and who gets to be a capital allocator. But when I started, I didn't have those expectations at all. So to me, it wasn't that long. It was just doing the work. It was just doing the
Yeah.
work, doing the work. Now I see a lot of GPs, and I'm not going to say that their impatience is not justified. It's just a different situation than I had when I came in the game 10 years ago,
Yeah.
almost 15 years ago now.
Yeah. But Marcus, I do believe that you need that kind of time just to build a track record in the space as well and to be somebody taken very seriously. So I do understand like where you came from, and people who do lose patience, I think they're not the perfect for this business. And an average fund size is 10 years. So tell us like a little bit about investing in healthcare, right? Like it's like today, when you say VC funds, you're talking about like AI, Web3, and I think Web3 is like kind of fading off now a little bit. But you're talking about these cutting edge technologies, right? That's what VC is all about. But rarely, I mean, we do see. Since I know this business, I see healthcare funds, but it's not like it doesn't get how do I say it doesn't get the media that some of these other technologies get. So tell us a little bit about how healthcare investing works, and that'll be like great for our audiences. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It does not get the same media attention, and it's probably because it's not as sexy.
Yeah.
There aren't as many unicorns in healthcare VC.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a whole lot of disruption in healthcare. So healthcare, if we're going to talk about U.S. healthcare, we have to start with the fact that it is one of the most regulated industries in the country. It
Yeah.
is the largest industry in terms of the percentage of total GDP. It's very close to 20% now
Yeah.
of the total United States GDP. The government pays for about half of it.
Uh-huh.
So, it's also a huge contributor to our deficit, quite frankly. Um, and it's very, very hard to get big in this industry. So, for example, we have the largest for-profit hospital operator in the country, HCA Healthcare, here in Nashville. So we have the largest one,
Mhm.
and they're probably 5% of the market. So it's a very fragmented market, very fragmented industry.
Uh-huh.
And it's also a very hard industry to disrupt incumbents in. So a
Mhm.
lot of what we do in this space is we invest in companies that will help healthcare workers do their job better, make patients' lives better, hopefully save lives, hopefully save our country money,
Yeah.
hopefully save families money on their healthcare expenses.
Yeah.
But I would say ultimately there are very few companies that will make it to the public market. And even of the ones that make it to the public market, they don't often stay there very long. Like, so for example, most recently we had Oak Street Health
Mhm.
that made it to the public market, but then CVS bought them, out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Okay. So
Yeah.
so a lot of what we do is we create companies that will either be acquired by private equity,
Mhm.
or will be acquired by the large healthcare platforms like United Health Group, CVS, Walgreens. Walmart now is a pretty big healthcare platform. Maybe one of the big hospital operators. Something like that is
Yeah.
mostly what we do. And so because you're rarely going to go public, you have to have a lot of discipline in terms of how you price companies from a valuation perspective, because the multiples, you're not going to get those huge IPO, 1,000x
Yeah.
returns.
But what is, I mean, if you don't mind sharing, what is like an average multiple that you would see like in a healthcare? And it doesn't
I
have to be the greatest, but if it's decent compared to
Oh yeah.
S&P, yeah, yeah.
No, I mean, look, our first exit was a 20x.
Okay.
But again, I think it boils down to what are you paying for the equity. The multiple is first and foremost, a function of what you bought the equity at,
Yeah.
right?
True.
You
Tell
know,
me about it.
right? And what we see a lot in like a lot of the hypey cycle tech stuff is these
Uh-huh.
really, really frothy valuations
Yeah.
that are super hard to justify and super hard to actually grow into to earn.
Yeah.
You don't see that many now in the last 6, 8 months, now that the Fed has jacked up the Fed funds rate. But I mean, prior to that, in the whole zero interest rate, regime, the valuations were just crazy. And I will say, in the entire time I've been doing healthcare investing, I'm coming close to 10 years now. The
Yeah.
valuations have always been more conservative in our industry
Yeah.
than they have been in pure tech. Always.
Yeah. That's awesome. Actually, at least you're not competing as much for the
No,
deals. Yeah.
no, you're not.
Yeah. So you've done, you started your own VC fund, you've done your own accelerator, and how did you end up being a minority owner of a soccer team? My son and my husband would be so excited about this.
So it was a pretty unconventional path.
Yeah.
It didn't start by saying I want to have ownership in a soccer team. It actually started by me helping out a nonprofit.
Yeah.
So we had a nonprofit fourth division soccer team here in Nashville,
Mhm.
and they were doing very well, but they needed some board leadership. So I came on to be the chairman of the board of this nonprofit.
Yeah.
And within a very short period of time of me deciding to become a chairman, I realized that we were going to have professional, probably top tier soccer in Nashville, and that
Uh-huh.
this group had the opportunity to be
Yeah.
the group that like at least was the foundation of that professional soccer movement in town. And so I started using everything I had learned in venture capital around
Uh-huh.
how to package up a deal, how to raise money. I used
Yeah.
that to work with the nonprofit to position it for investment,
Uh-huh.
and we did that. So I guess it was probably 6 months into me being the chairman when we got a commitment from the president of LifePoint Health, which is one of our largest health systems here in town.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we got his commitment to be the lead investor for our team, and
Yeah.
through that, I then joined the ownership group, and that's how I became a minority
Yeah.
owner. It kind of happened through that process.
Yeah.
But I think there is something interesting there, which is a lot of people. they don't necessarily think about the value of being a co-founder. You know, like whenever I talk about the soccer team, I
Yeah.
always emphasize co-founder with minority owner, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's like my path to ownership was principally because I was a co-founder, not as much because I had capital and network, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, a lot of people would say, I don't want to work on that nonprofit thing. I have like different stuff to do. Well, you
Yeah.
know, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
You know, I just think that there's lots of different forms of capital that we have. We have social capital, we have our time, we have our talent,
Yeah.
and there's lots of ways to position yourself to, you know, earn equity.
Yeah. So, Marcus, it's very interesting. Like a lot of things that has happened in my life have also been very accidental. And those accidental
Hmm.
things have actually been really big. Not the ones which have gone after and said, I want this didn't
Yeah.
happen. And I I agree with you, like how when you put like some amount of your time and you build that social capital, that goes a really, really long way. And that's how it has always worked out. I mean, I've helped like some random person and then it has come back to me like thousand folds all the time. So this
Yeah.
is an awesome story, I have to say. So, and I love the fact that how much you are like dedicated to Nashville and then growing that city. I just love that, the whole interview. So anyways, so you wrote a book, Create and Orchestrate, and I saw your you speak about it in TEDx as well. So how did you decide to write a book? And like coming from your background, it doesn't surprise me at least that you decide to write a book. And but how did you go about doing that? And how did you get like this national media? Like a lot of people who want to write a book, they don't know how to get a national media. Obviously, you totally deserve that media, but I'm just curious, like how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I want to tie together two things. So I you know, thank you for saying what you said about me in Nashville. I actually think, you know, and this is especially true. Look, if you live in a big city, you live in San Francisco, New York.
Yeah,
I mean, what I'm about to say may be less true, but
yeah,
you know, if you live in a tier two city or tier three city, you
yeah,
know, winning at home
yeah,
and being a big deal at home and really, you know, advancing your town or your city is such a huge cheat code. It really is. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because what ends up happening is over a period of 5 or 10 years, you end up having this body of work, this portfolio of work that you really can't compare to someone who just did something in a company, you know, because you'll have touched so many different things.
yeah,
So what spurred me to write the book was after I did my TEDx talk. Um, at that point, I started getting a lot of people asking for me to, you know, meet for coffee or whatever, and I just kept finding myself saying like the same things over and over in these meetings, and I was
yeah,
like, this is not going to be efficient. I need to find a better way to kind of like communicate all this stuff. So I
yeah,
started writing the book, and it actually took me 5 years to write the book because writing a book is really hard, especially if you've never done it before.
yeah,
Um, and it was the 5 years were kind of, you know, for two reasons. One, I would say because I was not very good at writing a book in the beginning, and it took me a good while to write a good book. The
yeah,
second thing was once I started writing the book, part of why it wasn't that good was like I hadn't lived enough life yet, and there were some key things that made the book really good that hadn't happened yet. So I was
yeah,
like, I need to just kind of be patient with this process.
yeah,
Like the soccer team, actually, like the soccer
yeah,
team hadn't fully happened when I first started to write the book.
yeah,
So you know, I think that I've told you this, you know, when we were together in Aspen, that I think everybody should write a book.
yeah,
I think it's really helpful to kind of like put your own story and your own hero's journey in perspective. And I think you would be amazed at who you would inspire if you do
yeah,
write a book. You know,
yeah,
it's definitely been one of the, without a question, like the top three things that I've done in my life, just
yeah.
because it's an easy way to kind of impact and share like the most important things you have with someone, which is your knowledge and your wisdom.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure people walk up to you all the time in Nashville and within your community and say that, Marcus, you are an inspiration in many ways.
I do get that actually, and
Yeah,
you know, it's actually, I mean, I may be skipping ahead in the questions, but I'll tell you, I figured this out, like especially during the pandemic, that my purpose
yeah,
is to inspire other people to like
yeah,
to tap into their own creative power.
yeah,
That is literally my life's purpose, and it's
yeah,
when I feel most in line, and most in the zone is when I'm stretching myself in
Yeah.
the in the effort to help other people like see their own potential.
Yeah. I feel the same way when I help someone who's like even giving tenfold more to society than I am, then I feel like extremely like I don't know, I feel satisfied. It gives me more
Yeah,
it gives me the biggest adrenaline rush ever. So I totally hear you when you say that. So, so how did you end up being a TEDx speaker? I mean, you've achieved so many things in your life, and I'm sure like anybody who listens to this podcast should be like fully inspired. So how did you like go there and said, okay, one day I'm going to become, and it was a very like inspirational talk, and it was amazing. I heard the whole thing, and I was like, wow, that's like really
thank you. Yeah, so I actually got turned down the first time I wanted to do it. I applied to do it, and they were like, "Why would someone listen to you?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll come back."
yeah.
So I tried once, I didn't get in, and then I tried again. I think it was like 2 years later,
Yeah.
and they let me in, and I think they're happy that they let me in 2 years later because the talk went really well.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of persistence. I think that's part of it, right? Like I did apply and I didn't get in, and so I just kind of kept at it. That was a big thing. And I think the other thing was, you know, I remember being at the event and watching other people, and some people like me
Yeah.
spent. You can tell how much time they spent on their talk. I spent
Yeah.
easily 80 hours on my talk. Easy, easy,
Wow. Wow,
no
that's
question,
amazing.
no question, right?
Yeah.
and and then there were people who I could tell just had not really prepared, and it was
Yeah.
just like, man, this is such a huge opportunity, to not like fully prepare for it
Yeah.
is just such a waste.
Yeah.
So I just I think that's the main thing, just having a lot of respect for the opportunity to do it, and applying multiple times,
Yeah.
just being
So, so
persistent.
the moral of the story is that, be at it. So, okay.
Yeah.
So, so you also went to Aspen, and people who know
Hmm.
Aspen, they know it is very difficult to be in one of the programs over there, and especially be a fellow, right? It takes I mean, it takes somebody extraordinary to be an Aspen fellow. So, how did you go about doing that, right? And I'm
Same
sure,
thing.
in fact, Marcus, a few years ago, I had this question for myself.
I applied. I didn't get in. I said okay. I came back 2 years. I applied again, and they said okay now. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, right? Persistence for sure is a
Yeah,
big part of it, but then I think you know um, you do have to kind of have a body of work
yeah,
that makes you stand out, and
yeah,
so it's like. Um, there are not a lot of, as you said, there are not a lot of slots for Aspen Fellows, and it's not always, people tend to always think about accomplishments in like these very narrow bands, like how many millions of dollars did you make or whatever.
yes,
It's like
yeah,
no, be like think expansively, think
yeah,
creatively, think about areas that nobody's really focusing on, but that could be really impactful, where you
yeah,
would just have a clear lane if you just dedicated 3 to 5 years of your life to that thing, right?
yeah,
um, Being interesting goes a long way in these
yeah,
kinds of things. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I think you need to do interesting stuff. So, my fund, it's like no one else was trying to do the kind of fund
yeah,
that I did. I mean, maybe one other person or two other people, but like for the most part, no one was trying to do it.
yeah.
So it's just it's interesting. It stands out.
Yeah, it's yeah, agreed. And Marcus, you brought a very important point. Like everybody measures success in terms of dollars, but
Yeah.
there is this element of creativity and some things that don't necessarily have like a dollar associated to it, and it's just different. And if you want to get into something like an Aspen or something, you have to have something which stands out, which is very important in your background. I totally agree. So now, so what I mean, obviously, this kind of like body of work hasn't come without struggles and ups
Yeah.
and downs, right? We all have had those, and you probably have had a lot more working against you. So what were like your struggles, as an you've been an entrepreneur all your life, so what is like, how did you feel? Like, I mean, I'm sure there were naysayers throughout your entire journey, and how did you like manage to overcome some of your struggles, and how did you manage to overcome some of your naysayers and reach here?
Yeah. So, one thing I would say, so before I talk about like what some of the challenges were, I'll talk about the things that got me through. So,
Yeah,
we're recording this on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, right?
yeah.
And all morning and up and through the afternoon, I've been working. Now, I'm not trying to say working on holiday weekends is like the healthiest thing ever,
Yeah,
but like if you want to have like an extraordinary life,
yeah,
you have to do extraordinary things, and a lot of times that's like working when everyone else is golfing or on
yeah,
the beach or whatever, right? So that is just part of it, right? Like
yeah,
there is a there's an there's an undeniability to someone's work ethic.
yeah,
You just, if they're just persistent and they keep coming and they keep producing,
yeah,
you just can't deny it in the long term.
yeah,
There are a lot of people who I see complaining about how difficult it is to get people to buy into them, but it's like
yeah,
you don't see them shipping enough work. They're not shipping enough of their own work, and that's like a really really big problem.
yeah,
Now, to talk about like some of the challenges, so I'm 47 now, and
yeah,
I've loved my 40s. My 40s have been great because when you're in your 40s, it's like, you're not worried as much about what other people think about you. You finally start to get, a little bit, a little bit less insecure and a little bit
yeah,
just like more comfortable with yourself. But holy cow, like, my late 20s and my early to mid 30s, all sorts of insecurity, all sorts of anger when people didn't listen to me, just like a lot of issues that arise from immaturity. And I
yeah,
didn't necessarily have like the most healthiest ways of dealing with that. So a lot of times I would, blow off steam by partying too much, drinking too much, and really like, over a long period of time, of entrepreneurship, I got to be pretty unhealthy. So one of the big changes, it kind of started about 10 years ago, but I got really serious about it about 5 years ago, was really just getting serious about my health.
yeah,
I quit drinking, I started working out, I started really getting into martial arts, I started focusing on my sleep, focusing on my what I'm eating. And man, like my life is like a million times better ever since I
yeah,
did that,
yeah,
and by the way, that's another cheat code because most
yeah,
people don't have the discipline to do that. And I promise you, if you focus on like sleep and being hydrated and working out and eating well, you're also going to perform better than
uh-huh,
everyone
yeah,
who's not. You know,
yeah,
so that's another cheat code for sure. But yeah, I think just the big challenges I had were just my immaturity, feeling like people were beating up on me when the reality was it's just sort of rites of passage towards greatness. It's
yeah,
no one gets through unscathed, no one gets through without running into narcissists and thieves
yeah,
and bullies, and you're going to you don't get out of that. Everyone will run into those people, right?
yeah.
And so it's just your gauntlet. You have to kind of go through it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's your gauntlet. So it's interesting that you spoke about health. I feel like your body and your mind, if it's like in synchrony, you can achieve a lot more. And then I totally hear you, Marcus, when you say that we're sitting here on Memorial Day. Same. I have actually, I don't even know why it's a Memorial Day, and I'm recording this. So you have to be at it, right? You have to consistently be at it, and if that's the only way for people to achieve, and if they've come from nothing, right, for people to achieve, I feel. And there is no substitute for hard work at all. So anyway, so moving on to the next question, and we spoke a little bit about this. What are like your goal and vision? And you're still very young, in my opinion,
Yeah,
and I feel
I think
like
I'm young.
go for
I think
another
I'm young.
40 years. So if all is well with your health, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, like, what is your goal and vision, and this kind of body of work to achieve this much within such a short span? And then I have no idea how much more you will achieve in the next 40 years. So
Yeah, so Akshata, I have to tell you, I mean, I really think I'm still figuring that out. I mean, I have a lot of clarity on the value that that I find in doing work that inspires other people, right? So that is very clear to me. And that's just a function of me doing things that make me happy and make
Yeah.
me feel fulfilled, but
Yeah.
then sharing those things, like not just keeping those things to myself, but, sharing those things with other people when I think, it's a fine line, but, trying not to be like braggadocious, but more just like saying, I'm doing this. You absolutely can do your version of this, right? Like not
Yeah.
exactly what I'm doing, but whatever this is, whatever this will look like for you, you can do this too.
Yeah.
Um, that's about as clear of a purpose that I can articulate right now. I
Yeah.
mean, we just had kind of a totally transformative experience together, a week ago at the exec seminar, and I'm still reflecting on that, right? I'm
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
reflecting on
Me too.
all this stuff that I read and all these conversations, and like, what do I think about this? What do I think about that? So,
Yeah.
like you said, I'm young and I'm still learning who I am, I think,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
still figuring this out. Um, so I don't know that I've got a like hardcore,
Yeah.
purpose statement defined,
Yeah.
and I think that's okay. I think it's
Yeah.
okay.
That's fine. That's okay, I would say. So we'll move to like some fun and personal section. And so Marcus, who's your favorite entrepreneur and why?
Oh boy. I used to have like some really lame answer for this kind of stuff. And then I started just realizing and learning that people are people,
Yeah.
and not so much that they disappoint me, but that, people don't really, there's no real reason to put them on a pedestal. This is going to sound really stupid, but right now I am my own favorite entrepreneur. And I think everyone should be their own favorite entrepreneur. Like I don't need other people to think, you know, I don't need to be someone else's favorite entrepreneur. But
Yeah.
for right now, um, I'm totally mentally and emotionally consumed with my own path and my
Yeah.
own journey, and I'm not spending a lot of time thinking about what, I don't know, Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or whoever,
He's
or what
doing.
any of these people are doing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about what I'm doing, and so yeah. And I don't know that I'm my own favorite entrepreneur, but I'm certainly the one I think about the most. That's for sure.
I love that. I love that answer. Nobody else has given this answer. So I love that answer. So let's move on to rapid fire. And it's like the first answer that comes to your mind, right? So, best decision you ever made.
uh, I think if I have to look at all of the benefits that have come from it, probably who I selected to be my wife
Yeah.
uh, after I got divorced.
Yeah.
Um, you know, it's pretty traceable a
Yeah.
whole lot of good things in my life
Yeah.
since that. Um,
That's amazing.
yeah, so I'd probably say, deciding, okay, I'm going to focus on Rachel. Like
Yeah.
that
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 is
was
awesome.
probably the best decision.
So
Yeah.
the most people who are successful, I've generally seen a trend. I mean, I can't generalize this, but they are very satisfied with their personal life, and it's only then that you can achieve the rest of it, I would say.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
I agree, 100%. One thing you cannot live without.
Oh boy. One thing I cannot live without. Um, right now, I think I couldn't live without some form of exercise. I'd like to say I couldn't live without jujitsu, but I think I could live
Yeah,
without jujitsu. But without some form of exercise, I would
yeah.
be a very, very angry person, I think. Exercise is like super important for me right now.
Yeah. One talent you wish you had.
I'm gonna pick two.
Yeah.
I wish I could speak another language.
Uh-huh.
And I wish I could play an instrument. These are two, like these are things that I'm probably going to retire early to spend the back half of my life getting done. I do
Oh.
not want to die a person who like only speaks English and cannot play an instrument well. I think that that's like so sad. So those are the two things I need to get those done.
Yeah, I don't see you retiring ever, Marcus. I can tell you that much. Biggest life changer ever.
Biggest life changer ever. I think probably the thing that put me over the top was bringing professional soccer to Nashville. I think that was
Yeah.
such a that was such a there's just very few professional sports franchises in America,
Yeah.
that are like on TV and stuff like that. So doing that, it's a hard act to follow, and it's very noteworthy.
Yeah.
And it kind of put me in a different it put me in a different place in terms of the way
Yeah.
that people thought about my abilities,
Yeah.
I would say.
No, I think what you did with National Soccer Team, I feel that's extraordinary. I, c- I couldn't have thought of that. What you did was extremely extraordinary. I would say most normal
Thank you.
people cannot think of that. Proudest moment, I'm guessing the same thing. You kind of.
Actually, so I have a new proudest moment.
Oh, wow.
Which is saying a lot, because I was very proud. So I was very proud of my marriage,
Yeah.
my wedding specifically. We had a great wedding. I was
Yeah.
very proud of when we brought pro soccer to Nashville,
Uh-huh.
and I won Masters uh, the Masters World Championship in Jiu Jitsu last year, and I was super proud of that. So these are three pretty big things. But
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I think my proudest moment was a little over about a month and a half ago. I threw my mother an 85th birthday party,
Oh,
and I
wow. Yes.
and I crushed it. I crushed
Yeah.
it. It's like it was so good, and I think that's my proudest moment, because it's like I don't know if you feel the same way as I do, but I basically feel like you can't pay your parents back. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
There's no way you can pay them back,
Yeah.
but you can appropriately honor them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like I finally appropriately honored my mother for, like, the level of
Yeah.
parent that she was, and so it's my number one most proud thing. But
Marcus,
just not even a question.
your shoes are very hard to fill for me. Very, very hard to fill for me. So, anyways, any advice for budding entrepreneurs?
uh, Take care of yourself and be kind to yourself and forgive yourself.
Yeah. All right, Marcus, it was great talking to you. I have to say, I really, really enjoyed it. And this was really informative. Like, to people who are watching this and trying to make it, I feel like this was definitely very, very informative. And you are truly an inspiration. I would say thank you for
Well,
coming. And
well,
yeah,
thank you for having me. I'm glad we're friends, and I'm glad you asked me to be on the show. And
yeah.
this is great. This is a great platform you've created, and you're
Oh,
doing a
thank
lot of
you.
good in the world.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying my best.
You're
I'm
doing a
trying
great
my
job.
best version to be Marcus right now.
You are doing a great job. You are doing an amazing job, Akshata. I'm very, very, very
Yeah,
proud to be on the show. Very grateful to you.
thank you. All right.